Hello, and welcome to another episode of Anything But Ordinary with Spooky and Raven. Tonight's topic, film giants. I am your awesome host, Spooky, and here is your other awesome host, Raven.
So, welcome. Thank you. Tonight's topic was a viewer's request that we had.
Yes, it was. And Raven and I had thoughts about doing a show on this topic for years. We actually had it written down in our long list of show ideas.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because we have like this huge list that we've started
Yep.
way before we even started doing shows like 3 years ago. We wrote down all these ideas of everything we wanted to do. And then we came on and said, hey, anybody who has an idea, go ahead and shoot it our way. We'll look into it too. So we have like this ginormous list. So we'll never run out of things when it comes to like show ideas. But, tonight's topic, like Spooky was saying, it's been an interest for both her and I long before we even started this show. We both kind of grew up, I know, because we've talked about this, kind of watching or just reading on all these different things when it comes to the giants or the Nephilim or, fallen angels and what have you.
And it's not just us. I mean, there are many others who are also intrigued by this topic as well. I've seen several different documentaries through the years, even TV series, and they just had one on not that long ago. I think it was called Search for the Lost Giants on the History Channel.
Yeah, wasn't that with those two brothers? They were like, I don't, I love the History Channel, by the way, because they play like tons of cool stuff. But that's that one show that they had those two brothers. I think they were brothers, either cousins or they were brothers, and they were trying to like uncover like the hidden truths or on the giants and all that stuff. I think I've watched a couple
Yeah.
episodes of that. I never did end up watching all of it. I always get distracted. Something sparkly catches my attention.
Well,
It's true. I'm just saying. There's so much in the world that you can't absorb it all in one sitting. You know what I mean?
yeah, I hear you. When researching tonight's topic, we realized that there were many avenues that this particular topic takes you down. And we're going to try to touch on a variety of things that people have talked about. Some are well known, others not so much. Now, Raven and I are not saying that these are real or fake, but we're just discussing the different things that have been mentioned when it comes to the topic of giants. And as always, we will leave it up to you, our listeners, to decide.
Yeah. I mean, Spooky and I, we never claimed to be, okay, I never claimed to be an expert on any of this type of stuff. But, we're just like two friends, like everybody who listens in or comes to our live chat and discusses with us. We're all interested in all these different types of things. And, that's why we enjoy having the live chat, because we can interact a little bit with y'all and learn different things too and see what other people's opinions and theories are, because there's just so much there's so many different things when it comes to this subject, and it's just been interesting. But we're probably going to bounce around a lot when it comes to this topic, because there's just we tried our best. We're going to try our best to touch on a little bit of everything that everybody's been talking about when it comes to the different theories or their speculation about what they think or whatever. We're just going to lay it all out there and then leave it all up to you guys. But, with giants, and it's been talked about for as all as we know is for centuries. You have stories and
Right.
you have the folklore pertaining to them is mentioned throughout the whole world, just in so many different cultures. You have, Greek mythology. They had their Tritons and the Titans. You had the Atlantis king. You know what I mean? You have it in
Right.
Norse and Celtic and Hindu and Asian and all of European type of countries. And all of them are pertaining. They have tons of this where they're talking about these ancient giant races.
Right. This is something that just is, they literally have some sort of story or folklore or legend. I mean, literally all around the world. And of course, you have the Bible.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to get into a religious thing here,
But it
but
has to be mentioned, yeah.
But I am going to mention it. In the Bible, they speak about the Nephilim giants, who were the sons of God, who in the book of Genesis lusted for humans and interbred with them, which created a race of giants who were referred to by some as the Watchers in the book of Enoch. Now, those who are interested, it's in Genesis 6, verse 4, chapter 6, verse 4. But there are several books within the Bible that speak of giants. Deuteronomy, Numbers, Joshua, Samuel, Chronicles, Job, and so on. I think there was like almost 20 books of the Bible that actually mention giants.
That's the ones that went in. There's a lot of books that they held out from putting in the Bibles too. But I mean, they do talk about the Nephilim a lot, or giants a lot in the book. Yeah.
Right. And you have the Cainites, who were descendants from Cain, who were from an underground kingdom called Arca. They were a race of giants. But if you read older versions of the Bible, it speaks of giants who were in the earth, meaning underground. Now, they talk about King Og, who was probably 12 foot tall. And then, of course, you have the story of David and Goliath.
Oh, yeah.
Goliath was said to be 9 feet tall. And by the way, the little boy David that killed him with the stone, he turned out to be King David later on in the Bible. But anyway, and of course, we know in Genesis 7, they talk of the flood in which it killed off most of life on earth and the giants. But in many cultures, they speak about the flood and meeting certain giants who escaped the flood by fleeing and building themselves some sort of raft or a boat or whatever.
Yeah, I read that in a lot of different, because in multiple cultures throughout the world, they all speak of a flood and how some of them all survived this or that, and a lot of people had claimed, these stories have been passed down, that these giants escaped drowning by building some kind
and
of
a lot of them
or something.
When they talk about the giants, they talk about pre-flood too. But but true or not, we are not here to make one believe or not. We are just sharing what's been talked about over the years when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when I was kind of researching this and stuff, I noticed that there were several different Native American tribes who spoke about these ancient giant races that survived the flood. And they're different tribes. They spoke about these giants that, inhabited the Americas long before their ancestors kind of traversed the open land. And they were saying this ancient race kind of they dwelled in the mountains, the plains, the woodland, the desert. So they're basically all over this country before Columbus and Europeans were, stated to have discovered this land. So when I was reading this, they were talking about these different tribes. They still kind of tell the stories from when they had to fight and protect themselves from this ancient giant race. Because you have the Algonquin, you have the Cree, you have the Choctaw, you have the Cherokee, the Comanche, you have the Inuit, which, is up by the Arctic area. They spoke about the Tunit, that's the word they call for giants, of these people who were a lot taller and stronger than them, and they had to kind of chase them off in order for them to survive in their little area. Now, the Choctaw, they talked about their tribal ancestors fighting against this large race called the Nahola. I'm sure if I'm saying that name right, so I apologize, when they were migrating west. And then you have the Navajo. They talked about this giant white race that had really advanced technology, and I guess they kind of took over and populated a lot of the west area, and they actually enslaved several different tribes. And the Navajo said that these giants were actually from the heavens. So are they aliens? Were they angels? I don't know. But this is something that people were talking about. Now you have the natives from all these different tribes who spoke about these ancient races of giants, and they all seem to, from what I was gathering, were ranging from like 10 feet tall to anywhere as close to 40 feet. And they
Wow.
said that these giants, they could literally like cross large creeks and rivers in just a few steps, or they could traverse over mountains in only a few strides. So that's pretty huge to accomplish feats like that, you know. But these giants, I guess they were, a lot of the tribes were talking about, during certain harsher seasons would come down and actually raid their camps and killing their animals, taking their crops, and even taking in or eating their own people.
Right. You have the lore or the legend by the Paiute tribes who spoke of the Seeteekaw giants. They were 12 foot and taller, and were cannibalistic. And cannibalistic. I almost got tongue-tied there. One day, the Paiute warriors were battling the giants, and a few escaped and hid in this cave near Lovelock, Nevada. And the natives surrounded the cave, demanding that the giants come out. And when they didn't, the tribe set a bunch of brush on fire that they placed in front of the cave opening, killing the remaining giants. I'm getting tongue-tied. I apologize. I don't know what's wrong.
We just started. We can't tongue-tie up yet.
I know. Well, there were skeletons, huge skeletons found in these caves near Lovelock, Nevada. During the early 1900s, they discovered a human jawbone that they said belonged to a man that was between 8 and 10 feet tall, along with other artifacts. Now, there were many native tribes who have talked about these these ancient races of giants being here long before they migrated to or across the Americas. Pre-flood world, and you know that many of these giants were cannibalistic and they were very brutal in nature. I know it's too early in the show to get tongue-tied.
Yeah. Well, you've been sick for a little bit and you haven't been good or whatever, but tonight, you know, like we said, we're going to bring and talk about everything that pertains to giants, and even if it's something we believe in or don't believe in, we're just trying to lay it all out there for the viewers' request to, you know, present as much good. You know, we tried to research everything we could that was pertaining to this, but, you know, there were stories of them even showing, like, skeleton remains of these giants that were like 10 to 12 foot, you know, that they had actually killed and buried to prove to others that they did have these encounters with these giant race. You know, there's even reports that when European explorers came to North America, they too had seen and or interacted with giants, because you have like Magellan. He talked about it supposedly. There was Sir Francis Drake. You know, it's been stated that, I think it was in like 1520 near San Juan Harbor. Boy, that was loud, whatever that was. Magellan and his crew supposedly said they spotted this giant on the shore that was about 10 to 12 feet in height. And then at one point, you know, Magellan and his men had somehow gotten two of these giants aboard their ship, and during their like return voyage, they got like sick and they passed away, so they just tossed them into the sea, which I'm like, okay. I'd probably store them up, put them in some type of...
I would have. That's what I was thinking. I would have tried to... I don't know, back then, though, it took months to cross the ocean. So they'd have been pretty ripe by the time they got back.
That's true. It's just one of those things where you want to prove to somebody, whatever. But
Yeah.
also, that, you know, I don't know if it's a true story or not, but I mean, I don't know. But it's just one of the many that, you know, been talked about by several different groups of people in our history or supposed history. But, you know, many believe in what the native and the early explorers have said, because of several of the giant skeletons that were found in different burial sites on, you know, what do you call them? The mound builder sites. You know what I'm talking about? They're kind of like all across the country. They have it, I think, like in Minnesota. They have them in Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, Wisconsin. I believe Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, Oklahoma, New York, California. I mean, it's just all over. And then you
Right.
hear about it from like the 18th to the 20th centuries, where they have these accounts where they're written in like local county historian logs, or they're being journaled about in all these several different newspaper articles all across the country. And it's not just skeleton remains that were supposedly found, but they also had artifacts as well, from, like huge stone weapons to large jars to what have you. And many of these items were kind of taken and destroyed, or, they were just taken away and never seen again, supposedly. And for those of you who might not know, I'm sure most of you guys do, but the mound builders were these people who created these different types of earth mounds for either ceremonial, burial, or kind of like just a place to reside in. And they kind of vary in all shapes and sizes. And some of the older mounds that they discovered, were made... that's the ones where they were finding these huge skeleton remains in, were the farther
Right.
older, the really, really old ones. But over the centuries, have revealed kind of like these small pyramids inside them. And they were saying when they were finding these skeleton remains that were really large, they were talking about them actually wearing kind of like leather clothing, or they were buried with like these large axes and swords and some even like copper type of weapons. So it was kind of interesting, You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and they even spoke of all of these tools that they found that were way too large for a so-called normal-sized person to handle. Excuse me. I know that giant skeletons have been found all over the world, but I decided to focus on the remains found in the United States. This is a subject that during my research I have found that is very deeply involved, and one cannot possibly get it all in a 1 hour in a 1-2 hour show, a 1 hour show. I've cut us down.
What? Yeah, I planned on having a 2-hour show tonight, so
I know.
I guess I'll be on
I'm
my
getting
own.
tongue-tied. It's too early in the show for this.
Spooky will be cutting out in the first hour. Raven will continue on with the second half, I guess.
Yeah. Here we go. About an hour and a half from where I live, there is a site called Cahokia Mounds. Now, this has long thought to be an ancient Indian burial site, and it is also considered to be the largest ancient civilization east of the Mississippi River. There's only one civilization that is considered to be larger than this one, and that was the Mayan civilization. Now, during an excavation of one of the mounds in, I think it was the 1940s, there were several skeletons found that to be the remains of people that were over 7 feet tall. Now, the thing is, there is no mention of any other mound being excavated and no mention of any other unusually large skeletons being found there. But it is a place that you can go and walk along these mounds, and kind of read the history and all of that other stuff.
And whatever.
And whatever, in the June 28th, 1933 edition of the Sarasota Herald Tribune, there was an article stating that a dozen skeletons were found in Catahoula Parish in Louisiana, and that all the skeletons measured over 7 feet tall. This site was examined by Smithsonian researchers, and this particular find gave way to rumors of prehistoric giant mound builders once living in that area. Mm-hmm. During an excavation of a mound in Brewersville, Indiana, this was in 1879, a skeleton measuring 9 feet 8 inches tall was discovered there. The remains were being stored in a building, but unfortunately in 1937, the building and the bones were swept away by a flood. Wisconsin seems to be a hotbed for finding giant skeletons.
This is what you get for being sick for so long and then having 2 weeks off.
I know, I'm just out of it, and I do apologize. The December 19th, 1897 edition of the New York Times reported that near Maple Creek, Wisconsin, 3 newly discovered mounds they opened one of the mounds, and it contained the skeleton of a man that measured over 9 feet tall from head to foot. And it was said that the head was the size of a half bushel basket, and that's a pretty good size head. And there were also copper rods and other artifacts were found with the remains. In the May 13th, 1912 edition of the same newspaper, it was reported that 18 skeletons, all measuring over 7 feet tall, had been discovered in a large mound on Lake Lawn Farm near Madison, Wisconsin, by the farm's owners, the Phillips brothers. According to the St. Paul Pioneer Press of May 23rd, 1883, 10 skeletons of both sexes were found and removed from a mound at Warren, Minnesota. Now, according to the same newspaper, in June of 1888, 7 skeletons measuring from 7 to 8 feet tall were also discovered in Minnesota, but for some reason, they weren't giving the location of that one. I guess they wanted to keep that particular site a secret.
Yeah.
According to the Chicago record of October 24th, 1895, a mound near Toledo, Ohio, contained 20 skeletons that were seated and facing east. And these skeletons, they had jaws and teeth twice the size of so-called normal people, and beside each skeleton was a bowl that contained hieroglyphic figures. And these skeletons were also said to be 7 to 8 feet tall.
Yeah. I found this one newspaper article from the Pittsburgh Press, and it was in September 13th, 1932, where 49 bodies were discovered there that were over 10,000 years old. And this was found in Washington County. Now, each body was said that they were found in a state where they were browned and then baked by the mound builders before being put into,
Wow.
the burial mound. Now, they said some of the bodies were 8 feet tall and up. Now, we're going to post a link in our references to these newspaper articles so you guys can, who are listening tonight or listen later on in the podcast in the future. It'll be after the show tonight. We'll put in the references. I'll change all the words where you guys can go and click on all the different newspaper articles that we found, and you can just read it in its full entirety. That because it's really long, obviously, to read everything that they have, but they have photos and a pretty good length. And these articles, they're ranging back from the early 1900s and up. So we're definitely going to share so you guys can see it all.
There is also a book called American Antiquarium.
Mm-hmm.
And this is more than one volume. Like in volume 3 on page 61, it states that during a mound excavation near Zanesville, Ohio in 1880, a skeleton of enormous size was found in a clay coffin that also contained a sandstone slab with hieroglyphics. Volume 6 on page 133 states in 1884, a mound in Kanawha County, West Virginia, contained a massive stone structure that resembled a temple chamber, and there was a skeleton that was like 7 feet 6 inches long found in this structure. And there was also a mention of this discovery in the 12th annual report of the Smithsonian Bureau of Ethnology in 1890. But this particular mound, they went into it, and there was actually a structure underneath it.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things, but this is the Smithsonian. I can't even talk. The Smithsonian, you've spread it to me now. You're fired. Is probably, I think, as far as I know, and I think everybody else knows, is like the world's largest museum. And if I believe right, it was established by this guy. His name was James Smithson, and he was like the scientist back in like the mid 1800s.
Right.
Well, he contributed a lot to the funding to it. You know what I mean? He was just a big player in it. But the Smithsonian,
I think
Oh, go ahead.
I think, wasn't he the guy that actually he was very wealthy, and when he died, he left all of his money for this museum to be created?
Yeah, definitely. But I think his intention of what it was and how it turned out to be is totally two different things. But, the
Right,
Smithsonian is kind of has like the world's largest collection, which most everybody knows. That's cataloged and kind of stored away for, it's been doing it for well over 150 years now, I believe. But,
right,
many people believe that the Smithsonian has been hiding certain historian truths, and some of them believe that they
right.
do have these giant skeleton remains that are kind of ranging in height from like 12 feet to as tall as 30 feet, which I don't know what I'd do if I met somebody who was 30 feet tall. And they're claiming that they're either hiding them deep in their stored away sections, or they've been advised to destroy these remains for whatever reason. But many think that the Smithsonian wants to cover it up or deny their existence for several reasons. Some people think, or summarize, it's because it will kind of like disrupt and or disprove the theory of evolution, and that everyone, didn't evolve from some like cosmic soup or monkeys or what have you. And this is what people are talking about, you know what I mean? But whatever the case may be, evidence of giant human remains do exist in the fossil records, along with artifacts and fossil footprints have been discovered from different, different kinds of digs from all across the world.
Archaeological.
Yeah, I can't even talk
Is
now.
that the word?
You screwed me up. You're fired.
Well, if you've ever watched the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Yeah.
at the very end of it, when he has to give up the ark, the ark, there's kind of a dig at the Smithsonian where at the end they tell him, well, it'll be well hidden, and then you go in there and there's all these crates and everything back there. And it kind of gives a little dig to the fact that the Smithsonian does hide away things. They just put them away and they don't show them to anybody for whatever reason. Do you recall when we were talking earlier on the native tribe accounts of giants? I did come across an article that was back in 1911 talking about the Lovelock Cave in Nevada, which I mentioned before. And it spoke
was
about,
in like when we were talking about the native, how they were in fights and stuff with the giants.
yeah, right. They started the fire at the mouth of the cave.
Yeah.
Well, it spoke about finding skeletal remains ranging from 6.5 to 8 feet tall. And in February and June of 1931, in the Humboldt Lake bed near Lovelock, Nevada, 3 large skeletons were discovered, and the first 2 measured 8.5 feet long, and they were wrapped in this gum covered fabric. They said that the third skeleton measured 10 feet long. And again, near Lovelock, Nevada in 1939, on the Friedman Ranch, a skeleton that was 7 foot 7 inches was found. And the review also reported that in 1965, along Holly Creek in east central Kentucky, a skeleton measuring 8 feet 9 inches was found under a rock ledge.
That's kind of interesting. I only read about some of them, and I did see some of the newspaper articles that I did end up getting to put in the reference link for posting it later, but I'll have to read it a couple. I didn't get to read them all. I just read some of them, but I'll have to look at that one because I didn't see that one. That might be interesting. But, when it comes to like the topic of giants, many speak about the Solomon Islands. That's mentioned a lot. I saw when I was doing my research.
Yeah.
And, during World War II, I think it was like in 42 and 45, they had like a skirmish or like a battle that took place there between like the Japanese and the Americans. You know what I'm talking about?
The Battle of Guadalcanal.
Yeah. Where they have these stories where these men told about having these encounters with giants while they were on the island. And not only were they kind of like fearful of losing their life from the other side, you know, that they were battling with, but they were actually fearful of these giants that the local, you know, even that the local people say still exist or inhabit this island to this day, and they reside within the, like, the jungle mountain areas of Guatemala. Now, they also make claims that these giants kind of use this cave system, and they say they kind of use it to travel all across almost the whole island underneath. So they could pop up here and there and not really be seen by the certain areas that are inhabited by the locals, you know what I mean? In the towns
Right.
and city-ish areas, you know? But they say that they have had these underground tunnel systems and like this underground type of city that's been constructed by these giants for centuries, I guess. And they said that these giants have actually tormented and attacked people and even killed and eaten. Now, some of the soldiers who returned home, they talked about like seeing these men, you know, on both sides being killed by giants ranging in heights from 12 to 20 feet tall. Now, and you know what, it's kind of hard to estimate height when it's a little far away from you, you know what I mean? And sometimes things look bigger than they are. So I don't know so much about 20 feet tall, but, you know, somewhere in there. But they, you know, they've actually, people who live on the island and who've been around there, they claim that they actually stumbled upon the giants' burial areas, and they've said that they've actually found skeletons that are like 15 feet in length. Now, some have said that these giants have, the way that they kind of look, they say they kind of have like, because they say there's actually, I think, 3 different kinds of giant races that are on this one island, but one of them is said to kind of have like this reddish hair kind of on its body, not so much like Bigfoot, but hairy like Bigfoot. And they say that it has red eyes, which made me think of when I was reading this. Remember when we were talking about reading about stuff when it comes to people who are running into these dogmen or Bigfoots, and how they say their eyes were either like yellow or red, and then they seem to illuminate by themselves. Well, it made me think of that same process. But they also were mentioning that these giants seem to kind of have like this flatter nose, like a thick eyebrow ridge, and just have like this foul smell to them. But I'm thinking if they're, you know, cannibalistic and they're living in caves, they're not going to smell like the best. You know what I mean?
Well, that's true, but I'm wondering if some of these things that they're running into aren't a Bigfoot. Well,
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Dapple made me laugh because he's like, why can't any of the giants be wearing pants? But you know what? If you're 30 feet, 40 feet tall, I'm sure you're not going to find a seamstress who has enough material to make you some pants. Sorry, chatter distracted us. But, you know, they have giants that they see in the jungle that kind of have like lesser hair, and they seem more humanish too. You know what I mean? And they claim that there's like all these several different kinds of giants that still inhabit this island to this day. And if you go to the Solomon Islands, you can talk to some of the locals, and they'll even point out an area where they're at, because they actually they didn't build towns or cities in that area. They left a big section of the island by itself because they know that this race of giants live there and that they do harm people. But it's not just their island. It seems that I found other islands, you know, because you have reports in Australia.
Yes.
I think there's Indonesia,
New Zealand.
Yeah, Papua New Guinea and stuff. They're all talking about...
Even Hawaii.
They're all talking about all these different skeleton remains, you know, that they're kind of finding. But there is a book that I found. It's called Solomon Island Mysteries. I'm going to put it in our link references. And they also have this website, and it's just worth reading. The guy put up tons of articles. He's been doing a lot of research. He actually lives there. He married an islander. But it's not even just giants that they're talking about there. They're actually talking about having tons of UFO activity, and that there's some kind of subterranean extraterrestrial thing going on. But it's definitely worth checking out. We'll have it in there for you guys to kind of read a little bit more about Solomon Island, because it's really interesting. There's a lot going on there with giants, paranormal, and UFO stuff. So I was just like, wow, that's kind of trippy. It's beyond just, 12-foot cannibalistic men coming after you.
Really, really. There are people who talk about finding giants that were on the islands of Hawaii. Um, there were two 10 to 12 foot tall skeleton remains that were found within a lava cave in a canyon near Olawalu, Hawaii. And I probably butchered that name. Do you recall when we did that show on flying humanoids?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Um,
That was an awesome topic. I loved that show that we did.
recall when you spoke about those soldiers in Vietnam near Da Nang?
Yeah,
Well, well, there are
Vietnam and
stories.
stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, there are stories of soldiers who reported seeing giants while fighting over there. One man even claimed he was saved by a giant that seemed to attack a nearby enemy that was heading in their direction after aiding a chopper. This man says he got lost in the jungle and heard voices of approaching enemy, and not long after, a large crashing sound was heard, and a body of enemy soldier laid on the ground in front of him, and a large 8 foot tall giant told the man to go back to his copter. But from what you and I recall from our research,
Mm-hmm.
many GIs had encountered strange humanoids and supernatural while in Vietnam.
There is a lot of stories coming out of there, from Bigfoots to, like, the flying humanoid thing that we talked about. That was trippy. But there was a
Right.
lot coming over there, and it just makes me. But I don't know. Are they real? Are they from our own dimension? Is it spiritual? Is it, alien? And there's so many factors you just don't know, but the fact that they're
Right.
actually finding skeleton remains of really huge statures, it makes you kind of wonder that, there is a possibility of a certain height. I don't know about 40 feet though, because that I have a hard time with my mind.
I find 20, 30, 40 feet a little bit hard to believe, but when you're looking at a giant and you're scared to death, that sucker's 100 foot tall.
Yeah, but
I don't
I
care.
mean, I don't know. We don't know, because we're only limited to our own backyard per se, and because of the internet, that's kind of like helped us branch out more and stuff like that. But you have to you have to put your filters on too. But there are many people who actually believe that many of the megalithic structures and like the monuments and stuff around the planet, they were constructed by giants. That's what they think, because they think, because of their massive size, you have to have some kind of
Right.
strength, and how tall these giants were. They think that it was easy for them to create these structures, because they kind of summarize that, they probably built the pyramids and stuff, because to them, picking up those blocks is probably like picking up, an ordinary brick or a cement block to them, if they're
Right.
these high heights. So for them, it was very easy for them to build these structures all over the world.
Well, some do believe that they were built by giants, and when you think about it, their finds and their theories do seem plausible. For example, in the Amazonian area of Ecuador, there is a well-known legend of the lost cities of the giants. Now, this legend pertains to giant humans that lived in cities in the area, but the history seems to have been forgotten. As a matter of fact, there have been giant human bones found in the caves in that area and in other parts of Ecuador. A team of explorers and researchers found an ancient pyramid complex in a very remote area of the Amazonian jungle in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So this, is fairly recent. And at the site, there was one extremely large pyramid that was approximately 80 meters, which is roughly 263 feet at the base, and another 80 meters in height. Now, it's made of hundreds of large stones that weigh approximately 2 tons each. And the top of the pyramid is flat, and it appears to be paved. And the stones are perfectly aligned, and they have edges that look as if they were sculpted by human hands. And there is this hard bonding substance between the stones that appears to be a cement-like substance. Now, found in the area, there was pottery and tools, and the tools were made of stone and were so large and heavy that it was said that a so-called normal-sized human would have had great difficulty in using them.
Mm-hmm.
The site was reported to the Ecuadorian government, and an expedition was sent in there in 2013. But for some reason, the government declared the site to be of natural formation and refused to grant money or allow excavation of the area.
That's weird.
I know. That's very weird.
Who doesn't want money?
Well, that's true, but a find like that, who wouldn't want to know about it?
Yeah.
Megalithic structures are literally found all over the world. South America, Japan, Egypt, Russia, and yes, even America. So who built them? You know, a race of giants would have had the advantage of moving these huge stones that form these structures.
Mm-hmm.
500 years ago, let's see if I can butcher this name now. Ollantaytambo in Peru was a military Incan stronghold against the invading Spanish. And it is also one of the last surviving towns that still has the original Incan walls and street grid.
Is that the place that has those huge terraces that look like giant steps going up?
I believe it is. It has 6 megalithic granite slabs that stand 13 feet high, and each of these slabs weigh, they say, about 50 tons each, maybe more.
Wow.
So how did they get there?
Yeah.
Giants could have possibly easily have carried them. The blocks of Stonehenge, they not only tower 24 feet, they weigh about 45 tons each. And it is not the only megalithic site in England. There is another at the Cove of Avebury, and there is evidence there of 98 original stones, but only 2 remain at the site, and they are about 13 feet tall, weighing more than 40 tons each. And it is estimated that that site was built in 3000 BC.
The picture I have up above is the one you talked about before Stonehenge stuff. I just forgot to switch it. Sorry, guys. I'm slow.
In the tomb of Reckmeyer in Luxor, Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
Archaeologists found this interesting imagery thing. While it did have several images on it, one of the images is of 2 men herding a giraffe, and the 2 men are shown to be as tall as the giraffe. And in this other image, there are 2 men standing with an elephant, and the elephant is considerably smaller than the 2 men. The other humans that are depicted in this same imagery are all of the same proportion as each other. Now, is this a proof of a race of giants that once lived on Earth? Because you have to remember that in ancient times, people drew images of things they saw.
Mm-hmm.
And let us not forget Easter Island. This is one of the most remote places in the world. It sits in the Pacific Ocean, and it's about halfway between New Zealand and South America. And it contains these huge statues. There's 900 of them there. And it's even been discovered that some of these heads, when they dug down, they found that they were connected to these stone bodies. So this entire huge statue was buried up to the chin. And some have been measured to be 18 feet tall. Now, this is not counting the head, because the heads themselves measured 13 feet tall. Now, is it possible?
Yeah, but didn't they dig down and then find the whole body of the structure that ended up being buried?
That's exactly that. I mean, some of these were entire statues that had just been buried, and all that was there were their heads. But is it possible that they do represent giants? And how did they get there? And who carved them? do they represent some lost civilization that died out or moved away?
Well, yeah, because
Even
there's so many different things that you... Hold on, there's a lot of different things because I'm thinking about the questions you just asked. But there are a lot of things that, some believe it's giants who did this. They also believe in ancient technology. Right. There's people out there who believe that our ancestral history, people were more spiritual and knew how to use... like levitation or telepathy or all these different things. There's so many things that are kind of talked about, and to be honest, we don't really know because a lot of history was changed, and it's hard for us to say one way or the other. But tonight we're just kind of presenting everything that everybody's talking about, and we welcome everybody's thoughts and opinions when it comes to this topic.
Exactly.
As long as it's in a friendly way, though. Yeah.
But there are a few people, very few, that live on this island, and these heads are so old that even the very few islanders that do live there are not real sure of the history because there's no record of any kind about them. There's no written, no oral history. None of that exists. And the heads and the statues of Easter Island to this day is one of the most intriguing mysteries of history to this day.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. There's so much I could have said on that, and we will be because we'll be bantering a lot tonight on different things. But
that would have made a good show, Easter Island, because
we actually are going to do a show on that because that is a viewer's request. But I was just waiting for the right time to kind of put that and some of the other ones together. Because some of the things that we're talking about tonight are going to be alone in their own show, too, because some of the things that we mentioned briefly can have their own 2 to 4 hour show, too, but we're just trying to talk a little bit where giants are mentioned throughout everything and just trying to give it all in there for our viewer that requested this. But, speaking of these different sites, when you're talking about the pyramids and all of that, not everybody agrees to any one theory. And a lot of people there's other people who believe that it was built by alien races. Or there's other people who think that it was humans in our structure size, like smaller, normal size, that were aided or helped by dinosaurs, because there's people who believe that men and dinosaurs coexisted at the same time. But there's tons of theories, plenty of them, when it comes to who built or designed these structures. But many think that the giants were or are aliens or fallen angels. So I don't really know, but these stories and these artifacts depicting these large-sized humans seem to be in every culture all around the world. There's, I don't know, maybe there's a little truth in all of this. We just don't know. Maybe not all of it's truthful, but maybe there's a little truth in everything that people have talked about when it comes to giants. But whoever did have a hand in some of these ruins and structures and stuff, they obviously were highly intelligent to be able to construct these megalithic structures. And they have it in a way where some of them are so accurately positioned perfectly to the planetary, the stars and the planets and their coordinates. Even ones that you couldn't see supposedly at the time, because they didn't have the type of technology that we have now, and it just kind of, I don't know, to me, it just shows that there's some form of they either had some higher technology or something. Because I don't believe that people from our ancient past, I'm already messing up words, are idiots. Because there's just too many things that disprove that. And, I love the internet that we have now because it kind of shows us the real truth versus the false truth that we were kind of taught in school, you know what I mean? And now everybody's kind of sharing the different things that they're finding out there, and it's not really hidden, But I don't think the people who designed these and built this were idiots. I don't know if they were giants. I don't know if they're aliens. I don't know if they used dinosaurs. Although the thought of having a dinosaur as a pet would be awesome, But I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting, and I think it was worth mentioning in here, because when you look at all the different structures that are all over the world, it just kind of because they couldn't even use these like a hammer and a chisel to get that smooth and perfect lasered looking condition that these stones look like, you know?
Right.
Do you want to take like a quick 3-minute break? Because I need some water. And then we'll come back and do the second hour of our show.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay. We just want to thank everybody who's hanging out with us. And don't leave. We're just going to take a quick 3-minute break. I need to get some water because I'm getting a little tongue-tied. And then we're going to come back for the second hour and finish the discussion. And thank you, everybody, for chilling with us. And we'll be right back. Welcome back to Anything But Ordinary, Spooky, and Raven. I'm your host, Raven, and of course, Spooky's back.
And I'm your host, Spooky.
Yeah.
Your awesome host, Spooky.
Yeah, everybody's awesome. Our whole chat room's awesome. Everybody listens to our show, and the future is awesome. And I don't mean that sarcastic. But tonight's topic was the Nephilim.
You do.
And no, I don't. It's Nephilim and the Giants. It was a viewer's request. We're just trying to kind of throw out a little bit everything out there in the kitchen sink that everybody kind of talks about that seems to be tied in with them. Someone had mentioned that, didn't they talk about the fallen angels and the Nephilims, that they interbreded with different species that created all these different giant races? That was mentioned in chat. And yeah, I did read something about that. And I think that's why you had like the Cyclops and these half human, half beasts, and some think that that's where these dogmans and Bigfoots and others come from too. That's just some people's speculations and theories. We don't know. Me and Spooky never claim to be experts in this area, but we do find these topics interesting, and we do like to debate about them or read about them and meet other people with like-minded when it comes to this topic. But we just got done talking about the megalithic structures and the different theories that people were talking about that. But going back to these skeletons that were discovered in the newspaper articles we were talking about earlier, they did talk about these giants that were having 6 toes and 6 fingers on each, and some of them even having double row of teeth, and that was mentioned in a lot of that stuff.
Oh yeah, just about all, almost all, not all, but almost all, most of what I read stated that's what they had in common: 6 toes on each foot, 6 fingers on each hand, and they all had a double row of teeth.
Extra teeth.
Claims of finding a giant during mining operations in County Antrim, Ireland in 1895. They found bones, and they said the giant was 12 feet 2 inches tall and had 6 toes on the right foot.
I was digging about because, actually we put this off, 1, because you were sick, but 2, there was so much to research on this, and we really wanted to find everything that we could pertaining to this. And yeah, there's other shows out there where they're like serious people like Stephen Quayle and all these other people who have really invested years and years and years of it, and you guys can check them out too and stuff. But like we said, we're just trying to do our best for a viewer requests and stuff, but some of the stuff I was finding in the papers and the articles and everything, there's this place, it's called Newspaper Rock in Utah, that has these petroglyphs, and they're showing these large stature people, and they have these hands and footprints that are carved in that have, the 6 digits. The Pueblo natives from the Chico Canyon, I think that was what it's called, in New Mexico. They decorated all their living area with these hand and footprints of the 6 digits. You can find these in New Mexico and Texas and all these different places all over there seem to have these petroglyphs that are showing really tall stature people next to smaller people on horses, 6-hand footprints and stuff like that, strange things with horns on their head. And I mean, they don't really know what all this means, but it's out there, and it seems to kind of fit with a lot of the folklore and the legends and the stories that are passed down through the centuries and stuff. But I know that people to this day actually are born with extra digits and toes, even fingers and toes, whatever. And the term they used, it's called polydactylism. I think that's how you say it. I apologize for butchering the word.
You're right. That's what they call it.
But I even had an aunt that was actually born with extra toes as a baby. But they cut it off. She had 2 little extra pinky toes, and they just cut it off for her. So I don't know. Maybe that happened a lot throughout the centuries, where people just cut off the extra thumb or finger or extra toe just because they thought it was, something wrong with that.
I went to grade school with a girl that had 2 thumbs on one hand, and right before she went into high school, she had the extra thumb removed. But I remember that girl, because she used to like to go around showing her thumbs.
This is interesting. There's somebody in the chat room was mentioning if we actually read the math or the myth of Native Americans, when they said hi, they would actually raise their hands so that they could actually count the fingers to know who they were approaching, if they were human or not. And if they did have encountered with giants and stuff, if they noticed they had the extra digits, maybe they would be like, okay, even though you'd still see if they were tall or not. But I mean, that's interesting.
That's interesting. That's a little interesting tidbit, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you for typing that in chat. But I I don't know. I was reading about this, and the term I think that they use when it comes to teeth is either hyperdentia or supernumerary. I can't even say the word. But anyway, that's what they call it for when you have extra teeth. Not just like, you know how you have baby teeth and they fall out and then your other teeth come in. They're talking about different rows upon rows in your mouth. And I don't know. This is a thing that it's possible because it is happening to people. You know, there are people who have extra digits and extra rows of teeth. And
Right.
they've been born, and they're still living with us to this day that have this, you know. So it is possible. And some people think that maybe the people who are born with the 6-digit toes and fingers, they're carrying part of the DNA from the giant's DNA, you know.
It kind of makes you wonder if it's maybe something, you know, if this giant DNA is just runs in families. I don't know. We all heard about Gigantopithecus. I knew I was going to screw that up. Well, in Australia, there was a group or a race, however you want to say it, that were called Megalithic. They were giants said to be anywhere between 7 to 12 feet tall by anthropologists, and some remains were found with other large tools and artifacts.
You know, I forgot to share the picture that I did find a picture of the giant, what did you just say? Megathropus skull.
Yeah.
They were talking about, and they do have pictures of these large jaws, and they're showing the large jaws compared to apes and humans, but we can't show that photo because we try our best to only share photos that we have permission to do. We don't want to infringe on anybody's copyright issues or whatever. But like I said, we're going to have all the links to these things so you guys can go and see and read the things that we saw and everything else, you know. But go ahead, what are you going to say?
Well, some of these articles I found that would refer to Gigantopithecus.
Mm-hmm.
That is usually what they refer to when they talk about Bigfoot. So sometimes, you know, while I was researching this, sometimes I wondered, you know, are they talking about giants or are they talking about Bigfoot?
You know, for a while they were actually still kind of debate this a little bit, but some are talking, I'm not saying us, that they're saying actually that the giant whatever. If we're saying it wrong, we're sorry, people. That actually could have been similar to the human more than ape, you know? And
right.
But they did find in Australia those huge humans that were just darn near the same size of the giant whatever.
Gigantopithecus.
Now you got me worried about every word coming out of my mouth because you were messing up in the beginning. So now I keep focusing, like, are all my words going to come out wrong? Like, focus. You know what I mean? But, you know, it's not just the skeleton remains that were found. You know, they have the reports of people finding these giant human footprints that are fossiled in stone all over the world. And they have it in California. There's a bunch in like all these different national state parks and forests. And there are tons of photos out there that are fake. There's other photos out there that seem legit, but, you know, we can't share them all because of the copyright thing or whatever. But they are finding, you know, footprints with dinosaur footprints. They're finding these large axes and weapons that people of normal height would have a hard time operating. You know, these huge skeleton remains and stuff. So, I mean, there is things out there that people are finding and seeing. So there's a little truth to some of all of this, I believe, you know.
Well, during both Raven and my research, we did try and look in all areas when it came to this topic and what people have said or theorized on. But if you think about it, it's not just an ancient history. That giants roam this earth. If we are talking about people who grew well above what is considered normal heights, look at basketball players. 6, 7, 8 feet seems to be the norm. Andre Rene Roussimoff, better known as the professional wrestler Andre the Giant, he stood 7 foot 4 inches. And it's not just professional athletes. here's a list of modern giants. You have Robert Wadlow, and this one is from my hood. Wadlow is
Your hood.
my hood.
You're all gangster now. Okay.
Robert Wadlow is considered the tallest man in history according to the Guinness Book of World Records. And this claim is verified by indisputable evidence. He lived in Alton, Illinois. At the time of his death, he was 8 foot 11.1 inches tall, and he was still growing. He was born in 1918, and he died at the age of 22 from an infection caused by a blister on his ankle, and he weighed 440 pounds. His coffin weighed half a ton, and it required 12 pallbearers. He's buried in a vault of solid concrete.
Someone walked in the room. It happens.
My mother just walked in. Where was I? He's buried in a vault of solid concrete because his family feared his body would be stolen, and it required 2 grave plots to accommodate his remains. Johann Asen, he was 8 foot 9 1/4 inches. His mother was from Norway, but Johann was born in America. He's buried in Montana. And an interesting note on this is his mother was 7 foot 2 inches tall. So was his giantism inherited? John Rogan. He was 8 foot 9 inches tall. He was born in 1868. His growth was normal until the age of 13. But due to an illness, he weighed only 175.
Wait, what name are you on?
John Rogan.
Oh, you're going so fast. We're going to be done before 2 hours is even close.
Sorry.
I'm giving you go. Anyway, John Rogan, found his picture.
Okay. Like I said, he was 8 foot 9 inches tall. He was born in 1868, and his growth was normal until the age of 13. Due to an illness, he weighed only 175 pounds at the time of his death in 1905. Now, his height was not officially recorded until his death, and he is officially the tallest African American ever. And he
that
died
we know
from
of, yeah.
According to the Guinness Book of World Records.
Right.
He died from complications of his illness. Leonid Stadnik. Now, he is 8 feet 5 inches. And according to the Guinness Book of World Record, he is the world's tallest living human.
So he's still alive.
This man is still alive. He's even on the internet. Sometimes you can talk to him if you can catch him. He was born in the Ukraine in 1971, and he is a registered veterinary surgeon, and he lives with his mother because of his failing health. Now, it's reported that he needs to hold on to tree limbs and the side of the house to walk around outside.
Yeah.
Al Tomain.
Oh, yep, I have that picture. Hold on.
He was 8 foot 4 1/2 inches. Now, he claimed the height of 8 foot 4, but the Guinness Book of World Records states that his height was actually 7 foot 4. He weighed 356 pounds, and he wore a size 27 shoe. Now, he spent most of his life as a circus giant, and while appearing at the Great Lakes Exposition in Chicago in, I think it was 1936, he met his wife Jeannie, who was only 2 foot 7. Wow. But that is because she was born with no legs. Hey. I bet they made quite a couple.
Wow.
But after retiring from the circus, he settled in the circus community.
Love sees no height, color, or religion.
That's
or
true.
Else. So good for them.
Like I said, after he retired from the circus, he settled in a circus community located in Gibsonton, Florida. And Gibsonton, Florida, all they have in there are people who either worked in the circus or as side freak shows, or who used to.
Yeah, because they were picked on a lot. People
Right.
people are
They
still
all
picked on
settled.
to this day. No,
That's true. So they all settled in this one area. So, they were living, with people like themselves. Um, Tomaine died in 1962 from a pituitary tumor. Ella Ewing was 8 foot 4 inches. She was born in Missouri in 1872. Now, she grew normally until the age of 7 when her growth just suddenly accelerated. But because of the time that she lived in, the only job she could get was as a sideshow freak, which she did for years.
I hate
She
that
died.
term, freak.
I hate the term too. I really do. But they even call themselves that.
Well, that's
Uh,
probably to lessen the pain of it, because we're all humans and we're all
it's
connected, and
true.
we should all treat each other so much better.
Well, that's true. We should, but not everybody does. She died of tuberculosis in 1913. Now, she is not listed in the Guinness Book of World Records, and that is because of a lack of records. So her height at her death is disputed.
You know, I was doing a little reading too for giants and giantesses and stuff, and I actually ran across this article I was reading, and there was this couple. Her name was Anna Swan Bates, because she got married to him, and this other guy's name was Martin Bates, but they were both kind of near 8 feet tall. But one day, like Anna, she was in visiting Nova Scotia, and she met Martin, who was kind of touring with a circus, and the promoter spotted her in the crowd, and he offered her a job. And of course she took it, because I'm sure she probably had struggles too, which it sounds like a lot of these people did who were of large stature or even small, you know what I mean? But they began touring together, and they became really good friends, and they ended up falling in love, and they got married, and both of them are actually listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as well.
Unfortunately, a lot of people of that stature, basically, that was the best paying job they could get, were in circuses. Edward Beaupre, he was 8 foot 3 inches tall, and he was born in 1881 in Canada, and he was the oldest of 20 children. 20,
20?
can you imagine 20 kids?
That poor
And
woman.
oh my gosh, those two didn't get out much, did they? He was like 6 foot tall at the age of 9. And he was a star in the Barnum and Bailey Circus. And he worked as a sideshow freak and as a strongman. Mm-hmm. He would lift horses as heavy as 900 pounds onto his shoulders. That is a strong individual.
They talked about giant Native Americans and all these different tall giants throughout the different cultural worlds, and they talked about them being able to pick up buffalo and lions and everything like they were just like little kitty size, or little small dog size to them.
Yeah.
So for him to be picking up humans and stuff, that's just made me think of all these other cultures who were talking about these tall men and women who were picking up, huge animals for us. There's no way in heck we'd be able to do it. And they're just like, meh.
Well, he died of tuberculosis in 1904, and his death certificate recorded his height as 8 foot 3 inches and still growing.
Wow.
Bernard Coyne, and it's spelled Coyne.
What? I don't think I have that picture. I forgot that picture. Sorry.
Not a problem.
I don't have that in here, do I? No, I don't. Darn it. Sorry, guys.
Well, he was 8 foot 2 inches, and he was born in Iowa in 1897. Now, his draft card for World War I, which was in 1918, listed him as 8 feet tall. And according to the Guinness Book of World Records, he was refused entry into the Army because of his height. He died in 1921 due to hardening of the liver or cirrhosis and a glandular condition. And he was buried in a specially made extra large coffin. Now, this is just a small list of the people we discovered online during our research. And we will be posting a link in references called tallestman.com, where you can go and read about giants and giantesses.
Yeah, because there's tons of them. I mean, we only picked like a couple, but there's just a huge list of people in their lives and stuff.
Right, but these were actually the top 10 listed tallest people in history so far.
Or that we know of, anyway, that we read up on.
Or that they even know of, but it would...
Come on, you can do it. Spit it out.
But this is just from... this is just
modern
a few of the people we just mentioned that it seems to prove that giants are real.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going by the ranges from 6 feet to 12 feet.
Yeah.
So if our so-called modern history lists people of extraordinary heights, like, is it so hard to believe that giants have walked this earth for centuries?
Not if you're talking about those heights, because that seems achievable to me.
Yeah. Well, or are these
players and everybody,
Yeah, or are these thousands of reports of thousands of people all victims of some sort of medical condition that caused them to not stop growing?
I don't really think it's a medical condition. I think that we have like certain DNA and everything, and you're designed the way you're supposed to be, and just because not everybody is of that stature doesn't mean that there's something wrong with it, but I don't know. When I was reading about all of this stuff, because there's a lot to take in, I almost felt like we needed more time, because there's so much we could really delve into when it's coming to this topic, and just going alone and just like the ancient history, pre-flood times, that could have took up like a whole 2 hours right there. But I just know there's all these claims throughout the history all over the world that speak of these like giants ranging anywhere from like 6 to 30 feet tall. They have like these different artifacts. They have skeleton remains. They have these giant fossiled hand or footprints. They have like these sacred burial grounds, that it's either hidden or kept all from us. There's like a bunch of stuff that we're not even aware of, but there are some stuff because of the internet that's being reached more to the masses and showing it. But you have like, the different pottery and stuff that shows are somehow telling a story, or you have the petroglyphs that are telling these stories of something, But there's so many things that I read on when it came to the research on this topic, and a lot of these things kind of seem plausible, and then other ones just seem like outright like, what? Like, what drugs are they smoking kind of thing. You know what I mean? But,
yeah, I know.
But, some of this stuff, like, there are people out there who claim that, there are and were giants found in these, like, status chambers, like sleep chambers. They're in, like, this hibernation, and they've been in
stasis chambers?
Yeah, stasis chambers, yeah. They're kind of like, they claim that they found these chambers underground and in caverns in these mountainous areas and stuff, and they claim that these giants are in, like, this hibernation mode, and they discovered them deep underground, and also in some of these Indian burial mounds. They're just, I don't know, this one's kind of weird, but they are talking about claiming that they're out there, and they claim that they discovered like these red-haired giants in parts of like Europe and North and South America, and that these giants are being protected from the general public, and they're covered up by like this higher elite groups, kind of like the Illuminati and stuff like that. And that these giants, some of them are awake and they're being kept isolated so that they'll never be able to kind of interact with the general populace right now until like a certain time. So they're kind of kept over in some type of military base or somewhere hidden, and
kind of like Area 51?
Yeah, stuff like that. And then there's some who make claims that these giants will be used by, certain powers to kind of bring forth certain darker times, while others think that these giants might be awakened now to kind of help aid humanity to bring it back to some kind of positive balance level. I don't know. We're not saying this. We're just saying this is what's out there, okay?
Yeah, some of these theories are really far-fetched.
To
So,
you,
and
but
there,
to you or to me, but to others, it's very believable, and they believe that they
well,
have
yeah, there
proof
are
to
people
this.
there are people who actually believe in these, but some of these claims and theories, I found some of them to be so out there in left field that it just that I just could not grasp the idea that there are giants in hibernation.
Well, who knows? We don't know.
Yeah,
That's the
that's true.
thing.
Who
The
knows?
world is so different than everything that we perceived or been told to perceive, or I mean, told to believe or follow, or whatever, be good little sheep or whatever. There is a lot of stuff that has been proven
Yeah.
throughout the history. Why'd you have to ban the show? Now I'm gonna time to focus.
I was going to do it louder.
They believe that
I'm
these
sorry.
giants are in these sleeping chambers and that they're going to be used and awakened to either attack and bring forth darker, like New World Order type of stuff, or bring back positive humanity and balance throughout the world. But I don't know. This is just one of the many things that are kind of talked about when it comes to the giants or the Nephilim or the fallen angels or the ETs or what have you. Now,
Yeah.
we're going to post this link on an article that was posted of this interview by a man that was or is kind of a part of this like elite covert forces. I think they called it like Cobra. It was kind of formed back in like 1975, and he did like this interview where he was talking about these chambers and the giants. And if anybody's kind of interested, they can go and click on that link and they can read about it and kind of listen to his interview or whatever. But he's basically talks about these darker elites who worship the devil and have taken these giants and are kind of keeping them guarded in several different bases all around the planet until like such time when they'll use it to control all human races or to depopulate or whatever. And some who believe that there's like, I was reading this other stuff too and I was kind of doing this, the whole hollow earth thing that people talk about.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah, I
some
do.
people who believe there's like this civilization, can I get the word out, of giants that are living in the center of the earth. And there's people who believe that there's like different cryptids, not also, and giants who come from there.
And spacemen and ET and spaceships and stuff. It's that whole hollow earth theory.
Yeah. And that these giants, both male and female, are just one of the many different subterranean species. Now, there is a book out there that's called The Smoky God, in which it explains of this one man's account of the inner earth. And he spoke of people from like 12 feet tall and up. And they were living to ages from like 400 to 800 years. And he talks about how they are like this highly advanced civilization and that they claim that this is where our UFOs are coming from. And then there's other stories out there of these men who took like this expedition as far as they could go, and they ended up in the inner earth because they were heading north, towards the North Pole. And that they were actually greeted by these giants, the Agrathons or something, I think that's what they call it, I can't remember. Anyway, they kind of welcomed them back to their home for dinner, and they conversed with them, and they were talking about like grapes were like the size of peaches and things like that. Like all the food was taller, the plants, the animals, everything was in just a larger form than it is here. And after a while, they went back to the boat and they sailed back for home. Now, of course, Hollow Earth is a topic that was requested by a viewer a long time ago, and we are going to do a show strictly just on that too, but in just like more greater detail, because it's just, there's a lot to it when it comes to the Hollow Earth stuff too. But when it comes to giants, the Hollow Earth has and is brought up many times by a lot of people, real or not, that's for y'all to decide, not for us to make you. But I believe that the Navajo actually spoke about like ancient elders who were descended, this ancient race or their ancient people who actually went down into the inner earth to escape some type of stuff, and then they later on re-emerged stronger and of larger stature after eons. They were down there for a long time to escape something that was occurring on the earth, and then they came back up. There's Native Americans who talk about that, and other different cultures who talk about ant people and other different things that live in the Earth's crust. So there's
Well,
just a
there are
lot
many
going on with that.
there are many Native American tribes that do believe in that and do speak of that, and just about every one of them has some sort of story or folklore or legend about giants. So I just saw something. I think it was an interview with, oh, what's his name, Steve Quayle, who is a very popular name known in this topic when it comes to giants and Nephilim. But I think it
Nephilim,
was
yeah.
when he was. I think it was when he was on Coast to Coast several years ago when this military pilot shared his experience when he and a few other soldiers were commanded to transport a 12 to 15 foot tall red-headed giant with 6 fingers and toes from Afghanistan to Germany. He said that he was told that this dead giant was killed inside a cave in
Afghanistan.
Kandahar, Afghanistan,
Yeah.
after it was attacked, after it had attacked several U.S. soldiers and even killed a few of the soldiers. He stated this giant had an awful stench to it and that it was also known to be a cannibal. But from other reports online, I guess other soldiers are not speaking up about this incident. Whether it's true or fake, I don't know. It's just one of the many things that we came across when trying to do our research.
There's just there you can I think we're gonna post the link to that interview too, right? Because I think I got
Right.
the link for that interview, so y'all can listen to that too. And everybody's can subscribe. I don't know. There's like your truth, my truth, their truth, and then the truth.
And the actual truth,
Yeah, so
somewhere in there
eventually-
somewhere.
Eventually, all of everything that's real and truthful is going to eventually come to light, and everything's going to be filtered out at some point. When, we don't know. It may be way long after we're gone. We have no idea.
Right.
But there's just so much when it kind of comes to this topic on giants, and I found it actually fascinating when you're reading all the different cultures and stuff that they do talk about pre-flood times and the giants and other things that existed, and then after the flood, because a lot of people talk about floods and there's certain things that are kind of proving that there was some form of flood at some point. And then after the flood, these people are talking about these things still continuing. So I don't know. I mean, are there things out there that we don't know about? I mean, there's people who are seeing Bigfoots and dogmens and ghosties and all this other stuff, and just because I didn't see it all doesn't mean that some of this stuff doesn't exist. I do believe that people have encounters and experiences, but I just think it would be kind of hard to hide a 40-foot tall man.
Well, the thing of it is, they're finding these skeletons. These skeletons are ranging anywhere from 6 foot to 12 foot tall. Okay? Back in ancient times, 6 foot was tall for even a normal man. There's got to be something to it. I realize that some of these discoveries are fake, like the petrified man found upstate New York. He was proven to be a hoax. There's one in England, I think it is, where they have a so-called petrified man on display. They're saying that is a hoax.
Mm-hmm.
I realize that some of them are,
right.
But you can't dig into a mound that has not been touched for thousands of years and find a skeleton that's 8-9 feet in length,
or 15
and
up, yeah.
Up to 15, and call it a hoax. You can't do it, because not unless the ancient Native Americans are playing a trick on us, like, hey, watch this, 1,000 years from now, somebody's going to dig this up and believe it. But
I don't think so. But but that's not just that. They also talk. I mean, there's race. We're talking about giant things.
There are so many stories about them.
Still pterodactyls and other things still being around for a long time. And
they're finding. Go ahead. Sorry.
But in a lot of countries that are not really overrun by the population, a lot of these animals people are saying they still are seeing these dinosaur-like creatures and tall men and women. Are they Bigfoot? Are they Gigantopithecus type of stuff? Are they humans? I don't know. Are they fallen angels who mated with several different things that create all this bizarre stuff? Are they a part of our world? Are they from different dimensions coming in and out? Are they time travelers or whatever? There's so many things that everybody's talking about when it comes to this. It's really hard to say.
Literally every country in the world has stories and legends and folklore about giants. Every country in the world. And you stop and you look at the people nowadays. Granted, most of them you see are like in professional basketball. Those are some pretty tall guys.
And women.
And the women. And other sports where you got these tall people. Then one of my sisters back in high school dated a guy that was 6'8". You still have these tall people walking around today. It's got to be some sort of genetic thing that's
DNA
inherited along their family. Yeah, that's inherited along their family line. That's like I come from a long line of short people. There's no tall people in my family, but I do know of people that I went to school with 3 brothers that were all over 6 foot tall back in high school. So there's got to be something to it. They're finding all of these skeletons. You don't put 49 skeletons in one burial place and call it a hoax.
Well, no,
there's just got to be something to it.
Artifacts, you have fossil proof and everything else. But, some truths are hidden because if certain things come out, then they have to swallow what the things they were pushing before. But, we tried our best to kind of cover a little bit of everything tonight. I know there's so much more out there and so much more we could have gone deeper into. But we just wanted to try to... It took a lot. I mean, I spent a couple weeks researching this and trying to get everything that we could think of to kind of present it out there. We do know that there's books out there and there's people out there who dedicate their whole life to this, like Steve Quayle, and he's got his own variation of what he believes all this stuff to be with the Bible and the fallen angels. And
then you have these people. Then you have these people. Like there was 2 people, I believe it was, that used to work at the Smithsonian Institute. Mm-hmm. And they say that some of the
admitting that they were destroying evidence and hiding it.
Yeah, they were saying that the Smithsonian was destroying evidence, that some of these giant skeletons, they either destroyed them or just dumped them in the ocean. Now, why are they hiding this from us?
Some people claim it's to disprove evolution, but everybody's going to subscribe to their own truths. But if it's the real truth or not, that's what people have to discover.
What harm is it going to do for me or you or anybody else in the world to know that giants once walked the earth?
Because of everything that they've...
Is it going to change history that we learned in school?
Yeah, everything I just told you. It would totally erase everything that they've been force-feeding people to believe and subscribe to for eons. If you take away what they've been molding people into, then they can't control you. There's a lot of things that are held back because then they can't control people anymore. But if they do a certain thing, they can lead everybody a certain direction, and they want you to believe certain things. Is everything that we've ever mentioned on any of our shows 100% true? No, we don't say that, but there's a little truth in everything, and we always ask people to kind of take off their horse blinders and do their own research and really research all the way to the end to see the things that you're subscribing to, if they are real, in fact, truthful or not truthful. Instead of just going off of what people tell us and say, believe this because I said so, we as a human should go out of our way to make sure the things that we're subscribing to are real and truthful to some degree or whatever else. But, Spooky and I, we're not experts in anything, but, we tried our best to bring to you guys a wide range of what's been talked about or believed or summarized about when it comes to giants and the history of it. And both Spooky and I are not here saying that all of this is true or false, but we just try to do our best in our research for the viewer who did request this show topic. And Spooky and I, we're just two friends who find a lot of things interesting, and we're just trying to break out of our own fences too, and just absorb as much as we can and filter what's out, just filter everything out. But we both found a lot of the things that we stumbled onto to be very interesting and worth talking about. And like I mentioned before, I will be posting links for those who are interested on reading more on this stuff in our research or in our reference section. We're going to post all these different links to the newspaper articles, to different websites, to different people even having discussions and interviews.
Right.
But I think we're going to kind of end a little bit early tonight because my internet's kind of flagging red here, so I don't want to lose.
Mine is too. We got a storm coming in.
So, Spooky, why don't you kind of let everyone know what we're going to be doing on our next show?
Okay, I think I will. I just want to thank the viewer who reached out to us with your request. I want to thank our mods, Richard, Vamp, Penny. I want to thank Raven for a good show. And I want to thank everyone who came into chat and everyone who is listening to us. Thank you so much. Join us Tuesday, December 20th, 2016, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Come chat and listen when we discuss haunted Wyoming, Fort Laramie, Cedar Mountain, and more. Tune in as we share several locations said to be visited by otherworldly entities. Thank you for coming. Please subscribe to us, give us a like, and please share us with others on any social media you may be a part of.
Right. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the awesome banter that was in the live chat tonight. I loved reading everybody else's different opinions and theories and the beliefs and truths that they subscribe to. Thank you for sharing us with others. We'll see you guys at other shows. If you want, you can get show reminders if you click on the little cogwheel here on YouTube next to our Spooky Raven name, or you can go to our website, anythingbutordinary2.wix.com/anythingbutordinary, and you can sign up for weekly email reminders. Or you can also contact us there and, banter with us or just make some show suggestions. I just want to thank everybody for hanging out with us tonight, and we'll see you around the net, and we'll see you at our next show. Good night, everyone.